Right now, Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz, 7 to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. We got so much going on. But the NBA Finals kick off tonight, Jay Fitz, and I want to get your thoughts on, obviously, LeBron is running out of finals. I mean, he's 30-some years old. I mean, how many more times is he going to be able to do this? So is it imperative for him to win this one?
Well, I mean, if he wants to win another one, probably, but let's also be real that the Lakers were clearly the best team in the league for the majority of the year pre-bubble, right? So, I don't know that I can say that they won't be the best team again next year. I mean, Brooklyn coming in healthy is going to give a different factor to it, and obviously we'll see a realignment of the entire league as we do every single year, it feels like, with superstars. But, the thing of it is, I think we get so consumed with LeBron and legacy and all of these other conversations when, in fact, if you look at the Lakers pretty clearly, AD has become sort of the guy that's going to run this team, which is exactly what they wanted. They gave themselves, LeBron, the best player right now, and AD, the best player for the future. They put the two of them together. Vogel's done a hell of a job as a coach. So I feel like for the Lakers as an organization, they've sort of been able to accomplish what they wanted. Even if you believe LeBron's going to hit a decline after this, AD isn't. And really, in the bubble, it's been as AD goes is the way this team goes, which is what I think they wanted when they built this thing together anyway. So I think the Lakers are going to be in this conversation for the next couple of years.
Right. I wonder, it's like, as we look at LeBron and what he's doing at the age he's at, and, I mean, the night he had the other night, still like 35, 14. I mean, How many more years are we going to get treated to LeBron James?
That's such a great question because, you start thinking about the way he takes care of himself and the chamber and all the things that we talk about. He can play at such a high level, but I'll use a different sport to sort of be the analysis here of if I'd have told you a month ago that we'd be talking about whether Drew Brees is done in the NFL, you'd have laughed at me, right? Like coming off the year he was coming off of, nobody would have believed that. The one thing we have to remember is that age is a wall that hits athletes very quickly and very suddenly. And when it does, it's hard to move past it. And, we just sort of forgive what we saw at the end of many famous careers as far as their inability to produce at the highest level. But I really think what they're building here is sort of like what the Lakers had when they had Magic and Kareem at the same time. We all knew that Kareem was the bigger star to the league and more important at that time, but you saw Magic sort of taking the reins. That's sort of what is happening here. So even if over the next couple of years he starts to hit a decline, I still think he can have important meaning to the Lakers, but they will have to figure it out when that moment hits. I feel like with LeBron, I'm just done betting against him. I mean, his ability to come in and get it done, no matter the age next to him, is just absolutely unreal.
By the way, he's 35 for everybody wondering. How old is that guy? 35.
35. Yeah, I'm a LeBron's man. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of the obnoxious supporters that really want him to succeed all the time. But when looking at this Lakers squad, who is the next guy after LeBron and AD? And it's like some nights it's Kuzma, some nights it's KCP. Is it Dwight Howard? I mean, that is what scares me, that third guy with this team. Because if nobody steps up, I feel that could be the reason why they lose some of these games in this series.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I will loudly say how wrong I was coming into the year about Kyle Kuzma. I really believed when all the pressure was off and he could just pick and choose his role on this team, I thought that Kuzma would transcend and become their third guy. He would become that person that you could rely on night in and night out. That just never happened. He never got really comfortable on this team in his role, and I think that's one of the biggest disappointments for the Lakers this year. The fact that they don't have a clear guy that they can go to as the third person, that's going to be an issue in this series because obviously we all know the Heat don't have anybody as good as LeBron or AD, but the Heat are five wide. I mean, they are a very balanced team, and they're a very wide team, like width of guy, you know what I mean? So they present a bit of a physical mismatch to some of the guys like Kuzma and KCP, I think. So I don't think there's an easy solution for the Lakers to come in. And frankly, my biggest concern in this series, and I think you're right, a third person is part of it, but I think there's also a concern. We've seen a couple of times, not just in the bubble, but even in the playoffs, where AD has come out without that fire in his belly, and all of a sudden we're sitting there the next day saying, what the heck happened? Why does this happen to him at this point? Well, you're not going to get away with that against this Heat team. This Heat team has one gear. It's absolutely, they go every season. They may not always shoot consistently, but they play consistently with a consistent level of effort and a consistent level of fire. I think they will be agitators in this series, and it's going to take AD really bringing it every night. And if he doesn't, there isn't a third guy that can pick up the slack and get a win against this Heat team.
Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz, 7-9, 97.3 ESPN. So LeBron's playing in his 10th NBA Finals. Jordan, of course, was 6 for 6. Which of those numbers is more impressive, 6 for 6 or playing in 10?
Well, that's such a difficult context to the era matters. I mean, if we start looking back at the 6 that LeBron played in, some of those teams were trash. And or the 10 that LeBron's played in, some of those teams were trash and still got there. So, that's impressive. But then you've got sort of what the Bulls survived in that. And I think one of the things that the Last Dance did that was really amazing was gave everybody a reminder of how many other good teams there were in the NBA at that point. So for me, I can't change my childhood fandom. There's this element to me that just puts Michael Jordan on a pedestal, even though, frankly, I grew up a Lakers fan. There's a part of me that puts MJ up on such a pedestal, it's hard to top that. But that's the same part of me that, I put Joe Montana up on a pedestal, not because I like the 49ers, but because it felt like every time they needed a big win, Joe Montana got a big win, right? And, for some reason, we've never applied that conversation the same way to Brady versus Montana, but I think there is some similarity. A bunch of championships is difficult to do. So, for me, it's Michael Jordan, but that's also because I'm 43. And I think if you're 33 right now, your heart goes way more to what LeBron has done.
That's about us. 43. What are you, 28?
I am 25. Yeah, so that's why I'm a LeBronsman.
Yep.
But
LeBronsman.
Yeah, yes.
Jordansman.
If you had to give a percentage on how what is the percentage, the chance of the Heat actually winning this series? I look at them and I kind of relate them to the Nationals last year. When you watch the Nationals during that playoff run, you just felt like everything was going right. They had the vibe, they were clicking, it looked smooth. And when I watch the Heat, it kind of feels the same way for me. So if you had to give a percentage of a chance of a Miami Heat victory this series, where do you fall right now?
I'd say, and by the way, that's a great analogy. I'd say 30, 35%, somewhere in there. I mean, this is going to be a tough series for the Lakers, but I can't get past the fact, I feel like it's disingenuous for me to spend all summer last year on radio saying, this is the year of the dynamic duo, and then not at least acknowledge that in the finals we got the best of the dynamic duos. I still think that that's enough to propel them. But frankly, as well, and you make a great point of how gelled they are, I put all of that squarely at the feet of Eric Spoelstra, who has managed to completely just bring this team together in a bubble in a way where it looks like they're having fun and it looks like they believe in each other. And there's just sort of this it factor around the team. And while AD and LeBron have so much it factor around themselves, we haven't felt that same in the bubble, that same sort of flow from the Lakers. And it's funny because I remember about a month ago, we had one of our NBA experts on when I was hosting the morning show at the time. And, I said, I think the Lakers go into the finals. And he's like, have you watched them in the bubble? I mean, it's looked disjointed. We've never said that about Miami in the bubble. So I think Spoelstra gives them a much better chance than we want to admit on paper. But I still think it's Lakers in 6. That's just my gut keeps telling me Lakers in 6.
All right, we'll roll on this. Jason Fitz, you got Mike D'Antoni, you got Ty Lue, you've got Doc Rivers sitting in front of you. You have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on your roster. Who gets your nomination to be your coach?
Doc, and it's not even close. I mean, it is not even close. And I'll tell you why. Everybody wants to talk about the numbers. And Doc is a great example of we can make stats fit whatever narrative we want to fit. You can talk about his successes, but you can also talk about the number of times his team had lost 3-1 advantages. And obviously the way that went down for the Clippers wasn't good enough. But the biggest thing that has struck me when I've talked over the last week or so to former players and former coaches, the tone of respect that comes from guys that have been around the game for Doc. And I think that that's what Philly needs more than anybody is a coach that the minute he walks in, everybody says, man, this guy gets me. I get this guy, and I'm willing to really battle for this guy. And there have been times that we've seen that from D'Antoni, but we have not seen that to the same level at all that we've seen for Doc. So, if I'm Simmons and Embiid, I know that at the end of the day, Doc will fall on every sword. He will keep me clean as a star. I won't have to answer questions because he'll always take the blame, and he will find a way to get the best out of me. So, I know the playoff failings are a big part of the conversation, but I'd also look at the playoff success, and I'd look at just the downright respect that he gets, and I'd hire him in a heartbeat.
He's Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz, 7-9 on 97.3 ESPN, at Jason Fitz on Twitter. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Jay Fitz, thanks, pal.
You guys are the best. Have a great week, my friend.
You take care. And he said Doc Rivers, and it's not even close.